Hey guys, so in one of my previous videos you watched me build the Windows 2000 server, but I didn't load an operating system on there. So this video is going to be about getting the operating system prepared and then installing it and configuring it to share files to some of my legacy systems. So to do that, I'm going to use a package called HFslip 2000, and it's kind of like Nlight, but it's compatible with Windows 2000 and has some more features than Nlight. However, I do still need Nlight at the end to integrate my AHCI driver because I looked up how to do that with HFslip and I couldn't figure it out. Didn't want to bother trying. So in the description will be the download link for this file. It includes every available update for Windows 2000 and some of them from Windows XP that are backwards compatible with 2000. So it's pretty much a one-stop shop for everything you need to get Windows updated. And here I've already extracted that. And this is what it looks like. So the first thing you want to do is just double-click this script file, and what it will do is create some extra folders that we're going to need. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. You can see it's extremely fast. And now we have this source folder. And what we want to do is copy our Windows 2000 ISO files into this source folder. And the version of Windows 2000 that I chose to run is Datacenter. And the reason for that is simply due to the RAM limits of smaller versions such as Standard or Advanced. If we look at the requirements here, down at the bottom of this page, we can see the limits are quite small, and my server has 12 gigs of RAM, so really my only option is Windows 2000 Datacenter with 32 gigs. One of the problems I discovered with Datacenter is it does not have any Windows Update capability whatsoever. So the only way to get it updated is either sit there and manually install every update one by one, or use something such as HFslip to automate the process. So over on my NAS, I have a 4-in-1 ISO file that I downloaded. Must be in here. There's the 4-in-1 extracted folder, and down here is the ISO file. And this will install every version of Windows 2000 that there is. So it's a very convenient all-in-one package. Okay, so I want to go into the root folder and then W2KD for Datacenter, and then this is the contents of the original ISO file. So we're going to copy all of these and paste them into the source folder under HFslip. Alright, everything's copied over. That's all we need to do in there. One minor tweak that we need to make is update one of the updates that came with this bundle, and that's under the HF Service Pack SW2 folder. It's the root certificates update. This is a rather old version of that update, so to get some of the websites working under Windows 2000 we need a newer version of that. And I have that on my NAS in this folder, and all I can do is copy that over, delete the old one, and it's probably not necessary, but I'm just going to rename it to get rid of that extra junk. So that should have the latest greatest root certificates, which are needed for if you're using an edition of Windows 2000 that has Windows Update, you need that to use it. So once that's swapped out, all we do is click this command file again, and it starts doing the updates after some questions. So we're going to pick A for default here. We're not doing a multi-boot CD, so we just press enter to bypass this screen. And it's integrating updates. Now, depending on the speed of your computer, this may take anywhere from, say, 5 to 20 minutes. So just sit back, grab a cup of coffee, and come back when it's done. Alright, finally finished, and we've got a runtime of almost 15 minutes, and this is on a very modern i7 processor in a virtual machine, so even on a fast computer it does take some time. Alright, so in this folder we have our ISO file with the timestamp and date in there, and now what we want to do is extract this so that we can use it in Nlight. And I will just extract that to the desktop here. And open up Nlight. We hit next, and we'll browse to our folder. Hit OK. And this error does come up, but I haven't found it to cause a problem, so we just hit OK for that. Go to next. We're gonna skip that, go to next. And then we're going to import a driver and create a bootable ISO. I don't really care about any of the other stuff in here. So next, and insert, and I don't know that it matters which method we choose for this. I'm just gonna pick multiple driver folder, pick my driver folder. We're gonna select that, hit OK. And then the server board I'm using has the ICH10R in AHCI mode. So hopefully that will work. And we do want the text mode driver so that setup can find it. Then we hit next, yes to start. Next again, and here we're going to create the image and our label Win 2K D is good enough for me. Make ISO, and we'll save that to the desktop and call it Windows 2000 Datacenter updated. Next again and finish. So here's our ISO file. I'll copy that over to my host machine, get it burned, and I'll meet you at the actual computer. Oh, and almost forgot, you do need to be in either Windows 2000 or Windows XP to run HFSlip in order for it to be fully compatible with all the patches. I have not tested it under Windows 7, but from what I've read, you do need at least XP or older. As with all server boards, this has a rather lengthy post process. I'm gonna press F6. Then we press S for an additional device. I've already got the first floppy disk inserted, so I'll press enter. And this is the ICH-10R in AHCI mode, which is up near the top of the list. Right there. And we also need to load the driver for the IDE controller card. So we're going to press S again, enter again, and this time we only have one option. And then enter to finish setup. Alright, we're here at the landing page, so we're going to just press enter. F8 to agree to the terms, and it does detect our SSD, so we're going to go ahead and get that formatted. Okay, we need the Intel driver disk. I believe that's the first one we did. Something about that sound of inserting a floppy disk is very satisfying. Alright, we'll wait for this to copy and come back. Alright, file's just finished. We're going to press enter. USB mouse is working. This is a rather lengthy setup process compared to, for say, XP. So my camera only has a 5-minute recording time. There's probably going to be a lot of breakups along this. So just bear with me on that. Here we go. So this is must be some kind of warning related to one of the updates that we slipstreamed into it. I don't recall seeing this. Going quite fast on this process with the SSD in there. If this were a platter drive, it would take quite a bit longer. Alright, it took a couple minutes to detect the hardware, so here we are ready to set our options. Wow. Epic typing fail. We're going to do per seat licensing. Computer name, I haven't really thought about. Considering this is extremely overkill hardware for this edition of Windows, and back in high school, some of my classmates set up a server, they called it Belch Fire. So I am going to do the same thing just for memory's sake. And a super secret password. Here you can see part of the slipstream process had something in here. Don't think we need anything else off of this list. Just hit next. I am in Eastern time, and yes, it's almost 3 in the morning. And now we wait for this to copy all the files. This phase of setup is going quite fast with the i7 combined with the SSD. There are a couple DOS boxes that appear here and there from the updates that were slipstreamed, so that deviates a little bit from a completely untouched setup. Alright, setup is finished. Let's reboot. We're going to pull the CD out. The Windows 2000 boot screen has always been painfully slow. Should improve slightly once we get all the drivers loaded, but nothing you can do about it. More remnants of the integrated updates, and now we are finally at the desktop. I don't think this detects the Ethernet driver on this motherboard by default, and no, it does not. There's actually 2 of them, so I need to grab a floppy disk with that driver, and I'll be right back. Alright, the driver wouldn't fit on a floppy disk, and I realized I could use flash drives on Windows 2000. I've been so accustomed to working on Windows ME that I forgot about that. So I'll go ahead and plug that in. And it is not showing up. Oh, there it is. Took a minute. There's my driver. This is the most okay, so we need management instrumentation. I was trying to say this is the most recent version of the drivers available from Intel for Windows 2000 version 14.0. Where are our services? And yeah, that service is not started. I guess we're gonna, oh, it is set to automatic. Okay, that's kind of weird. Let's try this again. And that's from Device Manager. Yes. Oh, this is finding quite a few drivers. Never seen that before. Alright, so that one's out of the way. I don't care, there's two adapters, I don't care about the other ones. We'll go in and disable that one. Apparently I plugged my cable into the second one. So I am going to actually disable that one and move the cable because I'm a little bit OCD about things like that. There we go. Now I can access my server for the rest of the drivers. At least I should be able to. At no packets sent or received, that's strange. And no IP address. I know for sure this adapter works on Windows 2000 because I've set it up on here before. Let's make sure there's no conflicts in Device Manager. Forget. Been a long time since I've used these older operating systems. It says it's working properly. Connected at gigabit. Alright, I'm gonna just reboot, I guess, and see if it starts working. Okay, we'll see if it prepares the network connection. No error messages, at least. And yes, now we have a network IP. And there is my storage server. So we're going to map a network drive S for storage. and into my driver repository. This is a Supermicro X8 STE. Here is the video driver. Successful. And yes, we will go ahead and reboot again. Alright, reboot is finished. So now we can tweak the display settings a little bit here. We're going to bump that up to 800 by 600 and 32-bit color. I gotta adjust the monitor here. Some of you keen observers may notice this is a different monitor from my previous videos. I switched to this one because it's a 1920 by 1200 resolution, which means for these retro systems I can use 1600 by 1200 for the ultimate experience available at the time. And then the 320 by 200 and 800 by 600 scale nicely on here as well. Drives me nuts when these don't auto arrange. Next driver we need is the Intel chipset. And let's see, I believe this is the one we want. There, it's finding everything. I'm going to delay the reboot for a minute just so I can check Device Manager. That should get cleared up on a reboot. I'm just making sure there's no unidentified devices remaining, and there is not. So we've got our properly identified video card, network adapters, our IDE and SATA controllers are all good to go. So let's give it one last reboot, and then I will show you guys how I set up to share files. Alright, we're back to our desktop. Let's check Device Manager one more time just to make sure nothing, no surprises. And yes, we do still have an issue with this, and I believe I can fix this by just rolling back the driver to the standard enhanced. Yeah, that gets rid of the warning. It wants me to reboot again, but it's not holding anything up, so we're gonna skip that for now. Alright, so to share files, all I need to do is create a folder on my C drive, and I will call this storage, and make sure auto arrange. And I've grown accustomed to the Windows 7 and newer way of looking at files, so we're going to set this up to mimic that. Alright, my camera went full retard and I had to restart this next section. So I was going through here setting up the preferences to my liking. Alright, and then so the storage folder we're going to share by right clicking and going to sharing. I'm going to select share this folder. Default name is fine, and permissions, we're going to make sure everyone has full control. And then the security tab, you also want to make sure everyone has full control. Okay. Now in order for other computers to access this without inputting a password, we have to make sure that the guest account is enabled, and by default that is disabled. So under computer management, we go to local users and groups, and here's our guest user, which you can see is disabled, and we just uncheck that box and hit OK. So now any other computer can access this computer and see the storage share. So what I'm going to put in here is just some legacy software for DOS and Windows 3.1. Windows 3.1 in particular has a really hard time accessing shared files from newer systems, so that's the whole reason for setting this up. Curiously though, if you share a folder from Windows 3.1, you can access that share from Windows 10 and put files and retrieve files, so that's kind of neat. And this is just copying off the NAS and putting it onto the C drive. So that'll be my entire DOS game collection. And then under software, I've got a section for Windows 3.1. We'll copy that whole folder. And that's going to take some time. I do have not a huge collection, but there's a lot of stuff there. We'll look at Task Manager real quick. We can see all 8 cores of my i7 show up, and physical memory says, oh, you know what? That's only showing 3 gigs because there's a step I forgot. In the boot settings, we need to enable physical address extension to be able to see all 12 gigs of the RAM. So if we go to System Properties, Advanced, Startup and Recovery, you can see right now it's only doing fast detect. I thought you could edit it from here, apparently not. So let's look at the C drive. I'm trying to remember how you do this. Yeah, here's the boot.ini. So at the end of this, we just add a space, a / PAE, if memory serves. Save that, and on the next reboot, we should see all 12 gigs of the RAM. So we're going to let these files finish copying, and then I'll reboot and make sure all the RAM shows up. Alright, file copy's finished. Let's go ahead and reboot, see if we see all 12 gigs of our RAM here. Right back to the desktop. Let's check Task Manager, and there you see 12 gigs of RAM. So everything is ready to go. We've got our share. All the hardware is working great. I did fix the issue in Device Manager, I think. Yep, no more conflicts with our USB controller. So there's my shared files. There will be some more things I add in here over time. For example, I have a very large collection of tracker music, and that's always fun to play in some of the DOS programs such as Scream Tracker, Fast Tracker. So thank you for watching, and stay tuned. There's a lot more coming.